Hi guys, welcome to Akiral Talk. It's been a minute. I've been a bit occupied, but well, here we are. Yes, welcome to Akiral Talk. So I promised in the previous period that this time I would, try to talk about a real life project that I worked on, a renovation project, and I'm going to try and take you through the renovation process of the project. And I don't have the full information about the project. So I thought I took a lot of pictures, but as it looks, I had very few pictures. So some parts of the renovations were not captured. Actually, they were, but I think I lost the photos, so they're not appearing in this video at the time. But just go with what we have. Anyway, so yeah, this is a renovation of a private home that belongs to a specific client that I won't disclose, but a project that I sort of enjoyed doing. It was very hands on. I was very involved in the decisions and everything that happened within the project cycle. So I had a really wonderful experience when working on this project, and that's why I wanted to share about it. Well, I hope it motivates you to remodel or work on a few things that you've not worked on in a while. Anyways, this is a home, like I said. It's located in Kamuli district in eastern Uganda, and it has been renovated. I think this is the second time. Previously, it was a four-bedroom house. Yes, it was a four-bedroom house built in around 1997, 8, I think. And as a smaller house, like those houses that were trendy at the time. It was a four-bedroom with a living room, a kitchenette, and then the front and back porch, and that was about it. And it was remodeled in around 2007, 2008 to a much bigger space. Of course, they kept the number of bedrooms to be the same, about four bedrooms, but then they tried to make them bigger. The previous ones were much smaller and, were for small capacity. But now the family had grown bigger, the kids had grown up, and they wanted bigger space. They wanted a bigger living room and dining. And then they wanted the bedrooms to be bigger, even for the parents, the owners of the house. We made these modifications in around 2007 8. And the completion of that phase of remodeling, I think, was in 2010, if I recall correctly, according to the story that I was given. And after that, they've been doing like some works, external works, like repainting, polishing, and all of that, but not general remodeling. So in 2024, the client decided that he wanted to give the house a new look. Previously, it had been painted in very bright colors, as you can see in these pictures. And the client decided that they wanted something more calm, something more classy. And by that, they wanted something less shouting, less bright, I think. Not as bright, anyway, as those colors that were there previously. So that's when I was hired. That's when my team, anyway, was hired. Yeah, so we did a bit of work. There are several things that we had to look at. For starters, the walls had decayed with water, so we had to rerun the damp proof course. And then we had to rework the floors. Previously, it was cement, like, just a nail of cement. And then repainting, and then plastering, grip plastering in some areas, a few material selections, and then we had to reinstall the kitchenette into the space, and then modifications like fittings and fixtures, electrical appliances, plumbing works. The ceiling had previously been made with ceiling boards, and this time we had to cast, like, change the whole look, like, use cement and sand and everything to make something more permanent instead of temporary ones that were there, because they'd, gotten those patches, like those stains that, make boards start looking old and brown and tired. So we had to make those changes, and to start with, we started with the damp proof course, the foundation. Remember that houses that were built over 20 or so years ago were built very closely to the ground, unlike the houses that are being built right now that are built way elevated from the ground. So, as such, the foundations of these houses, I don't know if it's just for the rural communities or generally, but the foundations of these houses are set to the ground, which has affected their function. Like, they are ruined so easily. The walls are decayed, the walls are damp, like everything is wet, and you put your good paint on the outside and just it fades so quickly because there's water in your walls. So we had to try and eradicate that, and for us to do that, we had to run the damp proof course, like I said, and we did this using stones. So instead of setting the foundation once again with brickwork, like blocks, red brick, we decided to cut stones, and we set in stones, and then on top of the stones we set the sheet, the damp proof sheet for waterproofing. Yeah, so that's what we did, and we did that for the whole house. Now the thing is, the effects of the water were mostly on the side where um, the areas that hadn't been extended, like the original house that had been made in you know several years ago. That's where the most impact was. The area that had been remodeled, that had been extended around 2008, was a bit more fine because that was a bit elevated from the ground. I don't know why the construction workers decided to have one side of the house more elevated compared to the other. But when you get to site in the middle of a project, those are questions you ask, and then you end up with the answers, or you don't, because most people have moved on from this project and you're probably just going to be a curious cat and there's nothing you can do about it. So we did ask the questions, but there's nothing we could do. We just had to become part of the solution. We had to run the damp proof course and ensure that it was efficient. The walls were dried up, so we had to, cut off the plaster that was initially put, and then take out the bricks. And after taking out the bricks, then we had to now go on and put in the stones. Now, moving on, once we were done with that, we moved on to ceilings, casting the ceilings. And yes, of course, it started with demolition, removing the wood, and then doing the timber work, and finally casting, like putting in the net and then putting in the mix. So that went on for a bit for the full house. And once that was done, we went on to the outside to set the veranda for the house. It had previously been there, but it was made of cement, of course. And with water, with the rains that are constantly falling onto the veranda, it usually gets those little holes that turn into ruins over time. So that had happened, and I recommended to the client that we should probably opt for terrazzo, and that was a good decision, honestly. It made the house look really more well put together compared to what cement had done, like the nail finish previously. And yes, we did that. We ran the veranda using terrazzo, as you can see. Like, this was, setting and preparations and how everything went through the process. And finally, once this was done, we went back on the inside and started preparing to do the tiling on the inside. Actually, the tiling ran alongside the terrazzo, but because terrazzo was happening outside and um, tiling was happening on the inside. We chose a really nice tile. I love this tile. It's a wood-like tile, like it gives a wood finish for the flooring, and I feel like it was most efficient given the location of the building. The roads that go there are not really, tarmac and stuff. So we needed a tile that would be convenient for the kind of space we're working with, the location, and this one was perfect. And it's shiny. It's very beautiful, honestly, when you look at it up close. And I love the way it was put together. So we used this tile for the whole house. We really didn't try to do a variety of tiles for different spaces. We did the same thing all through. And once that was done, we moved on to painting. Now, for painting, this is where it gets interesting because the client gave us the freedom to play around with colors. This is their retirement home, but then this is also a home that they wanted to be interesting. So they allowed us the freedom to explore a bit with colors, play, recommend, and all of that, which was honestly fun. So for bedrooms, we chose two colors for each bedroom. There was a color that was running from the ceiling to the head space of the bedroom for each room. So literally, we determined the head space of the bedrooms using paint. Like the moment you enter into the bedroom, much as it's empty, you do know that this is where your bed is going to face. And then we chose different colors depending on the usage of the bedrooms. So we chose some sweet colors for like the master bedroom. We chose some shouting colors for girls' bedrooms. And now the other thing is we repurposed the spaces. Some spaces that had previously been like a bedroom is now a utility room. It has like a storage compartment and it has the ironing and that kind of stuff. So that was also a different color, which was a very nice color for the corridor. This had previously been a beige. I think of beige as some sort of brown, and I don't fancy colors like that on the interior. So I chose a shade of grey, which worked so well for the corridor. It's shining up until this day. I worried that the brown just looked so ordinary and it would get dirty easily. But then this grey just, gives that classy, expensive vibe. I think it was a really good choice of color for the space. Yeah, so that's the work we did. And after that, we chose lighting, of course. The client prefers to have solar bulbs for his interior, and we did choose that. And then we chose these, electric ones, the hydro ones, to be put on the outside for security purposes because, of course, they're brighter. But solar was chosen on the inside because that was a constant, like much as power went off, would have continuous power. And of course, we put in provisions for backup with the normal electricity that's generally supplied around the country, but the major was the solar. And we did the toilets, like these ones, we entirely reset everything. We had to dig, take out what was existing, and then sort of lay out everything all together in a new way again, and it worked very efficiently. I had a challenge with the plumbers. They tried to convince me that this wouldn't work, and they said the bathrooms were very small. And honestly, I just had to show them that it would work, and it did. So I'm glad that it did. It would have been really embarrassing if it didn't. And yeah, so that's what we did. And finally, we did the cleaning of the roof of the house. Most people really thought that I repainted the roof, but I didn't. That roof has been used for rainwater collection since like for a very long time, for decades even, there is no way I could paint a roof that's used for rainwater collection. So I decided to hire some nice guys to do the cleaning of the roof. And the people who had not been around that day thought that it had been repainted because it was looking neat and clean. And then we used paste paint on the exterior, grey in color. I chose this color as well. It's called a storm grey. It's nice. Like, um, I think a year or so has passed since this was put on, and it looks exactly the same, much as the seasons have changed. I'm hoping that it stays like that because that would be really amazing. But yeah, so guys, this was the project. I had a wonderful experience doing it. I've done so many renovation projects, and I think there's some of the most challenging work, but it's very fulfilling work, and I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to do it. I always look forward to doing these projects, and weirdly, they're the projects that I get to work on the most. Most of the people that are contacting me are doing that for purposes of remodeling, modifications, extensions on existing projects. And I get to learn a few things about spaces. I get to experience what the people who are doing it the first time were experiencing, and it's amazing. It's fun. So, this is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for keeping up. I think it's like I was giving you gist today, so thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Have traveled a bit recently, so my future episodes are just going to be videos of the things that I've been touring. So stick around, watch those. Thank you so much for watching, for listening in, for being a part of my growth with this channel. Thank you for being part of my very few yet very many subscribers. Please, if you haven't, subscribe, comment, like, and share my content. Advise me. I'm still learning, and I welcome opinions. So thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for everything. Thank you for watching. This is Aki Real Talk. Goodbye.